Hello. In this video, I'm going to talk about a couple of issues, or 3 or 4 issues, which I've encountered playing Virtual Pro Online for FIFA for about 3 or 4 years now. The first issue that I want to talk about is the pre-game lobby. Now, for those of us who've played online before, sometimes we've seen this situation where you have the goalkeeper position, and you have a guy who's not a goalkeeper who tries to pick goalkeeper. Usually this leads to the actual goalkeeper being very frustrated, and it's just a really bad habit some people have who just have nothing better to do. Another situation is where you have a guy who's maybe 5'2", he probably has pink gloves and a blue afro, and he decides that he wants to pick goalkeeper. So you have the really big goal, and you have this little guy over here who thinks that he should be a goalkeeper at 5'2". Well, from my experience, this just leads to disaster. So what I've done is I have written a simulation using Microsoft XNA and C#. You can Google that if you want to. And this simulation basically deals with the scenarios that I just covered. So the first scenario, you have at least one goalkeeper in the lobby, and you have an outfield player who tries to select goalkeeper. Now, an outfield player should not be able to select goalkeeper if there is at least one goalkeeper in the lobby. And these names are randomly generated, by the way, just so you know, and they don't actually represent any actual players, so no comments about that. Thank you very much. Anyway, you have a goalkeeper here, for instance, and he should be able to pick goalkeeper, right? So I hit enter, and as you can see, there's a green check mark, and yes, goalkeeper has been selected. Now what if you have a guy who's a defender and tries to pick goalkeeper? Well, as you can see, he cannot select goalkeeper because there is at least one goalkeeper on the team. Now, to cover the second scenario where you have no goalkeepers in the lobby, and maybe you have a guy who's played goalkeeper before. Whoops. You have a guy who's played goalkeeper before, and you want to, have him play goalkeeper, or he thinks he is good enough to play goalkeeper. Well, that's the second example here. So there are no goalkeepers in the lobby, and alpha player must be at least 5'10" to select the goalkeeper position. So say you have this guy who is 5'4", he tries to pick goalkeeper. Well, as you can see, he cannot pick goalkeeper. Now what if you have a guy who is 5'11" and tries to select goalkeeper? Again, you see the green check mark that tells you that the player has now selected the position. And 5'10" is just the height, which I feel is the minimum for goalkeepers. It can be shorter or taller than that. It's just about the concept of having a system where a bad player or a player who's not tall enough or isn't a goalkeeper at all cannot select goalkeeper. Now, the second issue that I want to talk about is the timer. So for those of us who have played FIFA Online for a while, we know that there is supposed to be a 30-second timer that comes up when you're supposed to select your positions. Now, for some reason or another, this timer flies away somewhere, and it means that a guy who did not get his position can basically just wait there till everybody kind of leaves, or either he gets his position. And this, for me, is ridiculous, because you could have as many as 21 other players just waiting for this guy to move, but he's not going to move because there's no timer to count down to 0. And he's just going to stay there forever. So I'm not really sure why this is happening or why this glitch is there, but EA really have to fix this issue for FIFA 13. Alright, moving on from the lobby, I want to talk about in-game. One of the things in-game that I find kind of annoying is attacking set pieces. So say you have a corner kick, and you're a striker, but for some reason you're back here defending when you should be up here trying to score. This for me is unacceptable. If I pick striker and there's a free kick around the box or a corner kick, I want to be up here trying to score a goal. I don't want to be back here defending. Likewise, if my guy is really tall, like 6'9", I want to be up here trying to score for the team. I don't want to be back here defending. I've also written a simulation for that, and this simulation basically handles the case where you have a dilemma of who goes forward and who stays back, and how do you determine such players. So in the top left here, you can see a number of players in the box. We can move that left or right. Say we want 5 players in the box, and we want to simulate a corner kick. So we hit simulate. Now, as you can see, automatically the 2 strikers always go in the box regardless of their height or how good they are in the air. They always go in the box. Now, there's something called set piece effectiveness, which is basically a variable which is calculated based on the player's jump in, head in, height, and things like that. Set piece effectiveness is used to decide who other than the strikers gets to go in the box. Now, obviously, if you're a striker, your virtual pro is actually a striker, but you pick goalkeeper, you're not going to be up here because these positions are based on your in-game positions. And likewise, the guy who's taking the corner kick is obviously not going to be up here. So we can also test this with, say, 4 players or 3 players in the box, simulate, or we should probably reset that and simulate. And as you see again, always have your 2 strikers up here, your left striker and right striker, and the guy with the best set piece effectiveness. Now, set piece effectiveness can be anything you want. It can be based on height, it can be based on heading, it can even be based on finishing, as long as there is a consistent variable which determines who gets to go in the box for set pieces. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk about regarding set pieces, in a case where you have no any. Now, in some cases, you have the CPU controlling 5 to 6 players on the team, and say you have a free kick, and you have the CPU taking the free kick. You have no control over this free kick because obviously it's a CPU and he's controlled by a non-human unit. For me, the best human player on the team should always take the free kicks, corner kicks, PKs. Because maybe you want to do something different. Maybe you want to take it short, or you want to take it long, or you just want to keep possession. With the CPU taking the free kick, you have no control over this. And for me, this is criminal. You should always have the best human player on the team, regardless of how good the CPU player is, taking the free kicks, corner kicks, and penalty kicks. Moving on from set pieces, I want to talk about the captain. Now, the captain usually has a red triangle above their head. Usually. But what happens if the guy with the red triangle leaves the game? Well, you really have no way to tell who the captain is now. And I feel we should have some kind of indicator, maybe like a C or something in the triangle that kind of tells you that, hey, this guy is now the captain. This guy should be aware that he's now the captain. Keeping on captains, a captain at the moment can only kick the goalkeeper. I feel like a captain should also be able to kick an any, because for me, a disruptive any is just as bad as a disruptive goalkeeper. And on the subject of kicking players, in FIFA 09, I believe, you had a situation where the captain could kick players, and you'd have that nasty captain who would just kick everybody except for his friends, and it was just really, really frustrating to find a game. Well, instead of putting it just in the hands of a captain, as long as they're not the goalkeeper or the any, we should have some kind of voting system. At the moment, we have our game controller, and you have the directional buttons. This is the Xbox controller, or my attempt at the Xbox controller anyway. And you don't really use these directional buttons unless you're the captain. So maybe if you push like left bumper and the directional button at the same time, it pulls up a little sub menu. So you have your field over here, and in the bottom right is your virtual pro name, maybe a number. And once you hit these 2 buttons, you have a sub menu that pops up, and the menu basically lists all the human players on your team. So say you have a couple of human players here, and you can cycle through the menus and up, down, left, right. The menu obviously isn't going to cover the whole screen like this. It's going to be a little smaller. But as you cycle through, you have a red or blue or whatever circle below the player you're currently selecting, just so you know who you're about to vote to kick out. So say you have a player who thinks that he is Cristiano Ronaldo and doesn't want to pass the ball, or a guy that likes to score own goals against his own team, or slide tackling his own teammates and picking up stupid cards or something like that. Say you have a player like that and you just want to vote him out the game. Well, if 50% of the human players on your team vote to kick you out, then you get booted out the game. So you might be thinking, well, what happens if people go crazy and start voting to kick everybody? So maybe we have a system where only 2 players per half get kicked out, or 4 players per game, to kind of keep it under control. Also, you might be thinking, well, what if I'm having a bad game? How do I know I'm having a bad game so I can improve so I don't get kicked out? We can have a little bar here that just kind of fills up gradually based on where you are or the percentage you are to get kicked. So the closer you get to the end of the bar, you know you have to step your game up, and you probably want to start passing the ball in case you think you're Ronaldo. You probably want to stop scoring own goals, stop slide tackling, basically just to keep you on your toes. Well, that covers it for the things I wanted to talk about. If you agree or disagree with what I'm saying, feel free to comment. Feel free to add anything else you think is frustrating online in Virtual Pro. And please share this video on the FIFA forums, or share with your friends who play FIFA, see what they think. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a good time, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.